What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 148 of Nintendo Noise, Blitzscreen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, and I'm alone right now. Our least favorite thing happened this week where we recorded an entire episode of the podcast yesterday. We got an update about Emio the Smiling Man, which we now know is, of course, a Famicom Detective Club game. And today, of course, I woke up to a press release from Nintendo with a huge breakdown on the game. There is a 3-minute conversation with the game's producer, Yoshio Sakamoto, over on the Nintendo YouTube channel. So we recorded an entire episode talking about the teaser trailer that they dropped a week ago and looking at some of the fan theories that were going on and trying to answer the question of who is Emio, right? So I wanted to start this episode with an update, giving you guys a full breakdown of everything that we learned today. And then I will kick it to the episode that we recorded, and you can listen to the whole conversation that we had. There's a lot of good reporting and a lot of really, really funny moments there that are worth checking out. But we also had a question block segment after the Emio conversation. Without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start by pulling from the press release that Nintendo sent everybody this morning. The game is called Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club. It is coming out on Thursday, August 29th, meaning we've got another big release for Nintendo before the end of the year. And here's what Nintendo had to say about the game. In Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club, a student has been found dead in a chilling fashion, his head covered with a paper bag with an eerie smiling face drawn on it. This unsettling visage bears a striking resemblance to a recurring clue in a string of unresolved murders from 18 years ago, as well as Emio, the Smiling Man, a killer of urban legend who is said to grant his victims a smile that will last forever. So this is the first new Famicom Detective Club game in 35 years, and it is going to be led by the series producer and writer, Yoshio Sakamoto. Nintendo put out a 3-minute conversation with him over on their YouTube channel that has a bunch of new details about the game. So he was inspired to work on a new title in the series after, a 30-year gap after the re-release of the original titles that happened on Switch last year. And of course, those are Famicom Detective Club, The Missing Heir, and The Girl Who Stands Behind. If you're not familiar with Sakamoto, he's a longtime employee of Nintendo. He's been there since 1982 when they hired him right out of art school. And he is best known for his work on the Metroid series. So he created a bunch of characters for the original Metroid, and he was credited as a director on Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Other M, and was a producer for Metroid Samus Returns and Metroid Dread, most recently. But before he did any of that, he worked on Famicom Detective Club. The first two games were the first writing projects that he ever had. He was originally hired at Nintendo as an artist, and these were the first chances he got to tell a story of his own. So he developed the entire concept for the games, and he was kind of the lead creative on both of those. After the original two games got re-released on Switch, he said, quote, "I knew we'd be able to make something good, so I decided to do it." And he said that he did everything on the game. So he worked on the plot, he did the script, he did the cutscenes, and he said even all the smaller details were him. He did mention that, there was some collaboration and discussion with trusted colleagues, but it seems like this is potentially like, a solo effort to some degree. At least a lot more than most big Nintendo titles would be. So that's pretty cool to see. So talking about the urban legend of Emio that they created for the game, he said that the Smiling Man is an urban legend that we made up for this game about a man who appears in front of crying girls in exchange for their lives, gives them a paper bag with a smile on it. He went on to say, quote, "I'm confident that this game could be said to be the culmination of the Famicom Detective Club series. It expresses what I wanted to portray very directly, so the ending in particular might be divisive for some people. Exactly because it is that type of game, I hope that many people from around the world will interact with it, discussing their thoughts and impressions about it for a long time. I can't wait to hear the different comments from players." As somebody who doesn't have any history with the Famicom Detective Club series, I am definitely interested in this game. Just I think because of how different it is than what we normally see from Nintendo. But I did think it was interesting that in this initial statement, he's already getting ahead of the idea that the end of the game might be controversial. Max and Sierra were unfortunately not able to join me today for this recap, but Max did write in with some thoughts, and he said, "Sakamoto is the guy behind the story of Metroid Other M, so my fears are realized." And of course, Metroid Other M, very controversial story, and some questionable decisions made there with regard to Samus's characterization. But as I pointed out earlier, he has a track record with a lot of these other really great Metroid games. So, you know, it's coming out in August. It's only a couple weeks away. I'm definitely interested in picking it up and seeing what it's all about. And, I guess we'll have to see whether or not it lives up to the Super Metroid side of his career or the Metroid Other M side of his career. But either way, I think really cool for someone who's been at Nintendo this long to get to revive a franchise that they helped create 30 years ago and, kind of bring it back and retool it for a new audience. So, here's hoping that it works out. I'm going to kick it to the show in progress so that you guys can hear the original conversation we had. And again, remember, if you want to skip that conversation, you can jump ahead to the time code that we have down in the description down below, and that'll show you where you can jump to get to the question block segment and get the rest of the non-Emio part of the show. Take it away, future me. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined today by my very good friends and co-hosts, Miss Sierra Plus Ultra.
Hi.
And Mr. Max Wright.
Bing, bing, wahoo.
Welcome back, gang. It's great to be back with the trio this week, and yes. I'm excited because we got some news to talk about. All right, I want to open things off with a question today. This one comes from Andrew Valentine, who wrote in over on our Discord, just like you can, and said, "Who is Emio? Emio? How are you two been saying it?"
I think it's Emio. Emio sounds too close to like Mario for me, like the inflection on it.
Okay,
so I like Emio.
Isn't it like if you have the apostrophe over the I, that's what accentuates the E sound, like the E, Emio? I don't know.
Emio.
That might be right.
But could it be Emio then?
Mayo? It could be.
So many possibilities. I wonder if this it's another Arceus situation.
Yeah, I would have been great if they had put in a pronunciation in there. That would have been helpful for me. But so I want to talk about this one, right? This came out about a week ago. It was like right after we put out last week's show. And Nintendo dropped a 15-second trailer on their YouTube channel with the caption, #who is, I'm going to say Emio for now, I guess. We'll go with that. Fine. Oh, no, you liked Emio. We'll go with Emio. That's fine.
Yeah, I like Emio too.
Okay, all right, we'll go with that. Who is Emio? And, it is, I think very clearly, right, a horror kind of vibe, right? There's a lot of very spooky soundscape, kind of weird, harsh static and stuff ruffling around. And you get this shot of this man in a trench coat. He has a paper bag on his head, and there's like a kind of like quote unquote normal looking smiling face drawn on it, right? And you get some real quick horror cuts, right? You see like his hand, you see like a close up on the jacket, and then you get this really, really tight shot on the face that happens for like a second. And it has this kind of more sinister smile. The eyes are very wide, and it's almost like a Cheshire cat kind of grin. Teeth. Yeah, and it has teeth, or like it almost reminded me of like oh my gosh, I can't think of the artist's name. Manga artist who does like really, really dark, messed up stuff.
Junji
Ito, thank you.
Yeah.
It had like a little bit of that kind of feeling to it, of just like very like creepy, sinister, but not in a like overtly threatening way, So it's like feels even creepier in my mind. We get a little bit of text in what I'm assuming is Japanese. I'm not an expert on kanji, but that's kind of it, aside from the fact that it has an M rating, right? That's all the information that Nintendo has officially provided. And I've done some digging. I've got some reporting and stuff that we can kind of try to answer this question of who is Emio. But before we get to any of that, I did want to just throw to you two, like, what was your initial read on this when you saw it? Like, were you surprised by Nintendo dropping this like M-rated horror trailer, seemingly of a new IP or something?
I was, because when I first saw this tweet, I was like, oh, this is going to be from like Nintendo or like Mintendo. It's like going to be like a parody Twitter account or something. And I clicked on it. I was like, oh no, this is official. and it's like from Nintendo, and it doesn't, it has the Switch logo at the beginning, so it's not like it's like a third party thing necessarily, or like, to get that sort of placement and that sort of thing on the official Nintendo channel outside of a direct takes a lot, I think. This is clearly, in a Nintendo first party thing. I was surprised by the M rating, because from the initial look of this, it sort of reminded me a little bit of Trivia Murder Party from one of the Jackbox Party games, like the music and this sort of vibe. So I was like, oh, maybe it's going to be like, aimed at a younger audience still, while still being like an introductory horror thing, But no, this seems pretty legit. Like it's going to be horror, or there's so many questions about what it could be. But this character seemingly is the crux of it all.
What about you, Sarah?
I don't do horror. I didn't watch it. So thank you for the very descriptive. Thank you for the descriptive play-by-play of what happened.
Got the breakdown for you.
I do not do horror. And you mentioned there was smiling. That would have wrecked me. Anytime there's like a thing that smiles in a horror thing, it's like it imprints on my brain. And it haunts my nightmares for weeks.
It's just a drawing on a paper bag. It's very light behind you. I can see there's nothing behind you. If you want to watch it now, we can keep it safe.
Library. Oh, we should have planned for the live reaction. Yeah, I would have done it.
No, maybe after we record the episode, so we don't scare you in the middle of it. Maybe we'll have you do a live reaction.
The Weeks That Smile, the movie was out, and the marketing came out. Worst time of my life.
Yeah.
Oh, and I looked out of curiosity, and it was so scary. And I just started watching this. Okay, we're getting so off topic, but I started watching this anime Solo Leveling, and like there's a major beat in the beginning where like this stone statue comes to life, and it makes a creepy smiling face that's very akin to like when Titans in Attack on Titan smile.
Hate that.
So
Hate that vibe.
I risked it for the nightmare fuel, but like it's a good anime. But like smiling really gets me, and I have never handled horror well. I think it's cool, but like I can't do it. So I'll avoid things like that constantly.
Where are you on the sort of the closed mouth smile that people do to be polite to old people? Like that to show you I'm not a threat.
I actually think that's like one of my default faces.
Yeah,
that's like one of my my prompts when I'm out in real life.
Yeah,
like I pass NPCs. Like, how do you respond?
It's nighttime. I'm 6 foot. I'm by myself. I give them one of those. All of a sudden, I'm disarmed. They are completely disarmed.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite of Emio.
Yeah, and the anti-Emio.
Video game where you pass. Yeah, Emio video game where you pass nice people on the street and you disarm them by giving them a fairly closed mouth smile.
Love that.
Bag off.
So there's Sarah's alternate pitch.
Yeah, that's the response I need from Nintendo. How are you going to counter this? For the nightmare havers.
Bring us back, Pete. Tell us what this could be.
I'll bring us back. So I did a little bit of research and kicked some stones over, and so there's a few details that I think will give us a clearer picture of what's going on, but definitely still a lot of unanswered questions. Because shortly after this came out, people started connecting it to an interview that had happened with the CEO of Bloober Team, who you may know. They're probably best known, I would say, at least in recent memory, for being the team that's working on the Silent Hill 2 remake for Konami. And they had a interview with PAP Bizines. It's a publication that is in, I want to say, Russian. It's a different language.
That, I think, is business.
Oh, you're totally right. Pat Business. There you go. Yeah. All right. There you go.
Like, am I reading the same word?
I just both freeze and read it. It's like, what are you talking? Phonetically, right? Okay. No, you're right though. So basically, the kind of quick, translation, quick and dirty translation of it is them saying that they're working on something called Project M, and that it is a collaboration with Nintendo. And this is the Google Translate text of what was said. Project M, although its budget is significantly smaller than the games we are working on at Bloober Team, is extremely important due to our long-term plans. In addition, we are working on it in cooperation with the world's best game creators for Nintendo platforms, so we cannot afford to create just a decent game. So that led folks to be, pulling out the corkboard and trying to connect the dots, right? Like, could this be Project M, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, Bloober Team known for working on horror games. We know they're working on something with Nintendo. Seems like that could potentially be, a match that makes sense, right?
That really sucks all the excitement out for me personally when I first read that initial report, because I know that Bloober Team are very good at making, middling horror games, or medium horror games, you might say, because they made The Medium, which was okay. They made Blair Witch, which was okay, and now people are a bit worried a little bit about this Silent Hill 2 remake, which is also them. So yeah, I do think that did, make me go, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't be that excited. But also Project M was the working title for Metroid Other M as well, which again, that's the scariest thing about this whole thing for me personally.
For me, and I don't know if this is the thing that either of you have played, Project M is also the name of a very popular mod for Melee that
I remember that. Yeah,
that adds like a ton of content and characters and like changes some of the move sets and stuff. So
yeah,
that's where my mind went with Project M. But so yeah, that I think with what we know about Bloober, right? Like they're a team that has made a few games that have gotten middling kind of reviews, and they're seemingly a studio on the rise, right? Like getting some of these higher budget projects, some more high profile stuff. We'll kind of have to wait and see on how Silent Hills turns out. And is this, kind of a turning point for a studio that's getting their feet under them, or is this another in a long line of kind of middling horror efforts, right? But there is some additional reporting that seems to point to the idea that maybe this isn't them working on this game, if you're concerned about that. So this originally broke from Universo Nintendo, which is a South American Nintendo website. We've cited them a few times in the past as a source, and their editor-in-chief, Necro Felipe, is the one who broke this story, and he's actually been a reliable source for a few things like this in the past. So obviously, any rumor that you hear from somebody that's not Nintendo, you take with a grain of salt, but there are certain folks that have proven themselves to be connected enough to, call the shot on these things once in a while. And Universo Nintendo has proven themselves in the past. So this is one of those ones where there's smoke, there's probably some fire, but obviously grain of salt on that. So Felipe took to Reset Era, right, which obviously well-known gaming forum, and he shared that he's heard that Bloober Team is not involved with the development of Emio, and that it's another team. So, obviously we don't have much information beyond his word, but given who he is, I think it's worth at least throwing that context out there as people are largely trying to connect this dot between Bloober and Emio. But there's also a little bit of additional information that came from the Australian version of the game's trailer, because obviously every, kind of major region has their own ratings board. And within that, there's certain information that you kind of need to provide alongside why the game is getting that rating, right? So in Australia, they're kind of like equivalent to mature, right, in the States, or I guess whatever the 18 plus is in Europe, which I don't know by name, is mature accompanied, which is an MA15 rating. And this kind of specific breakdown of what earned it that rating on the trailer description says that there is strong themes, violence, cruelty, suicide references and themes, and as well as domestic abuse. So those are some of the, I guess, elements that you can expect to see, I guess, presented in the game. And you can kind of, I think, start to draw some lines for how those things could be maybe framing devices for the story, or, obviously some of those are pretty broad, right? Violence, cruelty, and suicide.
Strong themes.
Right, which is like those are all vague enough that, in a horror
Yeah.
game, it's like that could mean literally anything, right?
Yeah.
Domestic abuse, obviously a little bit more specific, right? Because I think even like
Yeah.
suicide references,
Strong
quote
themes
unquote.
as well as suicide and domestic abuse.
Yeah,
Like,
that's not the
Yeah. That's a different strong thing.
that's the
so
icing on the strong theme cake.
Yeah. I mean, all of these things technically relate to Mario Odyssey as well, right? Bowser marries Peach, and then immediately they get into a scrap. Like that sounds like all of those things
Yeah,
still
sure.
count.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then the other bit that I thought was interesting was a Japanese streamer who is known as TKN0801 gave a little bit of context about the game's title, which is she said that the name Emio should roughly translates to smiling man, which is Emi is the root word for smile. And then O is a short version of Otoko, which means man. So smiling man, right?
Mm-hmm. That's what the kanji says as well on the thing.
That was going to be what I was going to guess.
Oh,
That was
sorry.
the case.
Oh, okay.
No, please. Thank you for fact checking that one for me. So yeah. So I mean, obviously, this gives us a little bit more to go on here, right? But I think based on what we knew, I think it's kind of just shading in some of these answers, right? It's like, who is, who is Emio? I mean, it's clearly this man, right? This trench coat, smiling bag guy, and we know that there's going to be some intense themes that have earned it this M rating. So obviously, that doesn't give us a ton to go on in terms of like speculation about plot or anything like that. But I mean, it definitely strikes me as odd, right? That Nintendo is, seemingly, right? Like this is their first. I mean, if this is technically a first party game or not, I guess remains to be seen. But I think to your point, Max, it does seem like a Nintendo published game based on how they announced it, based on how they posted about it on their social media, the kind of like not knowing who the developer is or anything like that. If there was some kind of like, oh, we're partnering with this well-known horror team or something like that, you think that would be advertised, which gives this the feeling of something that is homegrown.
Yeah, because I think the Project M thing that article is referring to isn't Emio, because like if it really was announced like around the same time as that trailer dropped, I feel don't Project X stuff like get announced like way ahead of like the game's actual like title announcement. Like that's like where it's in development, we're in the planning stages. Like so, I think it's something different.
If you're this close to a cryptic reveal, you don't go onto like a business magazine and talk about it, I guess. Yeah. I do feel like that because of the way they've advertised this and how cryptic it is and how like they're clearly trying to create an air of mystery, create, the hashtag WhoIsEmio. They're trying to create conversation about it. I think as soon as you mention we're partnering with this team, it takes away the mystique, takes away some of that conversation, because you then know what have they made in the past. Oh, okay, they're famous for visual novels, or they're famous for action games, or they're famous for survival games. And all of a sudden you sort of get more of an idea. Whereas the fact that we know nothing other than the trench coat and the paper bag, this could be anything. This could be this could be absolutely anything. It could also be a fake out. We don't know necessarily what it is. However, the mature trailer thing does make sense. I do.
To me, it at least confirms that what I think we're looking at is some kind of survival horror, psychological horror, right? Like it's going to be some kind of experience like that. But what that looks like moments of, is that a third person game? Is that a first person game? Is it, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Like it could be literally anything.
Can I throw out a prediction? Can I just throw out a quick prediction?
Please do.
I'm getting the air about this that it's been, a little while since Bayonetta 3 came out. They haven't done like a new game together, like a new IP. This is Platinum and Nintendo since Astral Chain. I'm gonna guess that maybe this is related to Platinum Games, that maybe this is a Platinum Games thing. They're Bayonetta's finished now. They're partnering with Nintendo on something new. I just get that feeling from them, and they do also make mature games with Nintendo. I think they're one of the only people that are known for making mature games with Nintendo. If you talk about,
I think you're right. I don't think Nintendo's published another M-rated game that isn't Bayonetta.
Yeah, is Astral Chain M-rated? I can't remember now, but yeah, no, I think you might be right. I think
it's the only one. Let me look at.
Okay. What about like the ones with the cameras, the the person goes around with the camera. Is that
oh my God.
Nintendo?
Fatal Frame, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Googling Fatal Frame. Fatal Frame
think that's what it's
is... Oh, it's Koei Tecmo, it's Grasshopper, it's Nintendo were involved in it, but they did publish it. Ooh.
Is that one
And
M
it's
rated?
18, and it's 18
Okay.
rated. I don't know if that translates exactly
And I
to
mean,
M,
that's a
but
horror title, right? So like,
that is...
fair enough.
Okay, so amended prediction: Platinum Games or Koei Tecmo. Those are my two guesses, but I'm leaning towards Platinum Games just because of the timing of it, you know. Or what if it? No, no, I'm not. I'm going to stop throwing out 100 predictions and then going yes when one of them comes in. So
I mean, if you got another one, throw it out, man. Call your shot. That's fine.
I was just thinking it's been like over a year now since oh my God, who the hell makes Xenoblade Chronicles?
Monolith Soft.
Monolith Soft. It's been a little while since they've done anything. Although we know from, you know, when Lootpots first reported on, they were working on like a fantasy IP years before Xenoblade Chronicles 3 even happened. So, you know, they could be working on something else. But that's just a thought. Platinum's my guy for this one.
I think the only other thing that comes to mind for me is like, you know, we heard that rumor, and I mean, I guess it was a series of rumors, right? That Sierra and I reported on earlier this year about how they had, you know, intentionally delayed the release of Switch 2 to shore up more software stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if, you know, in addition to that story we talked about where they were partnering with, I think, 3 well-established studios to do work on their IP. I mean, maybe they also are spinning up new internal teams and like they are wanting to get a team that is focusing on, you know, other genres or that are maybe aimed at more mature gamers because, you know, obviously Nintendo's kind of all ages, like family friendly stuff is like very well established. And, you know, the more, you know, teen to M rated stuff is kind of few and far between. So the idea that they would maybe want to have a flagship title in that genre that is a very popular genre. It's very popular with streamers. Maybe this is just them wanting to diversify their offerings a little bit. And it isn't, you know, a partnership as much as it is like, you know, a kind of internal initiative.
Yeah, I could see that. This could even be the first Switch 2 game we're looking at right now. You know, the first, like, you know, they're being so cryptic about it now because by the time they finally reveal it, it's because, hey, this is coming out on Switch 2. Again, we have no idea what those plans are, but you know, I did think that by now we would have seen this again. However, I'm noticing now this is only 6 days old, and tomorrow it would have been a week. And knowing Nintendo, they'll put out information about this as
the
soon
day
as
after we talk about it.
Out. So, yeah, I wonder if we're going to see it soon or if we're going to see it, you know, a ways away. Also, why wasn't this in the Direct? Imagine like ending the Direct. Oh, obviously, I have Metro Prime 4, but imagine just slipping this into the Direct as well. Of just like, who is Emio? You know, what's going on?
I wonder if they thought, well, I mean, I guess you could have done both, but I feel like it kind of coming out of nowhere and having this like cryptic thing, like it got us talking about it in a way that we might not have if it was like, oh, and also they had this horror thing. Metroid Prime is what we care about. The Zelda game's what we care about, right? Like maybe this, to your point, is part of like a longer marketing beat and they want to have some kind of like, you know, like ARG almost like experience, right? Where it's like, we're trying to answer this question and getting little teases like as we build up to whatever it actually is.
Yeah, we could have like another 15-second trailer tomorrow, and then we have, you know, we start to piece it together. Sort of like the Longlegs trailer. Maybe this is inspired by like the Longlegs trailers where it was just like, here's a tiny little vignette of something that's not quite a trailer, and then at the end of it, they all get slapped together, right?
Okay, this is crazy. I'm going to throw it out though, just in case, because we're throwing out crazy theories. Maybe this is an exclusive with like the Blumhouse Games team.
Yeah, that's true. Although that is a publishing arm, though, isn't it? That's not a development arm. That's a publishing arm.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. So yeah, they probably wouldn't partner with Nintendo. But, I mean, but maybe it's just an exclusive. Maybe they're doing like a console exclusive as like, you know, like we see that with like Marvel Games, right? Where it's like Marvel Games is the kind of, you know, the arm of getting studios involved with their IP, but like, you know, PlayStation published Spider-Man and they're going to publish Wolverine, right? And
that's a good point.
Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's a strategic partnership with like another studio or something that, you know, wants to capitalize on being like the only new horror game on the Switch too, or something like that,
Mhm.
right?
I have a question, and I don't want this to be offensive to you, Sierra. Do you think, or you haven't seen it, so you don't know actually, do you
Yeah.
think, do you get the air from this that this is actually going to be scary to an adult audience, or do you get the idea that this is maybe could be a bit juvenile in some way? Like, while there is like the man's got a bag on his head, and that is quite unsettling. Is it going to be as like, do you think they're going to stretch to like the genuine horrors of like, Resident Evil, or, stuff where there is sort of more body horror involved or stuff like that? Or is it just going to sort of be a bit still muted because it's still Nintendo, and maybe they are, still, even though it's an M rating, they maybe are a little bit cautious about pushing too far into like strong. I mean, the themes that they've mentioned here do speak for themselves, I guess. But yeah, I don't look at this and go like, oh, I look at this and go, all right, like, what is this? Show me more,
Yeah, like maybe it'll just be psychological horror.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, is that it's not, I'm not expecting like gore. I'm more expecting like just like it being dark, and like creepy, but like, again, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those things where it's like, it's a spooky, haunting ghost story kind of thing. And maybe you're like exploring an environment and getting the backstory of like what caused this, and that the that's where you get into some of the themes of like domestic abuse or whatever. Some of the other things that have been called out there, right? Because that's obviously, not an uncommon way to frame a story like that. It's kind of like, here's this awful thing that's happening to this, point of view character, and then they're kind of trying to unravel the mystery of like, who is the smiling man, or whatever, right? While as you're trying to survive and escape.
Yeah, I think you probably nailed it there.
Yeah, because if they don't show like blades or fangs or like blood in the trailer, I'm like, oh, maybe it won't be bad.
Yeah,
in that regard.
It's crazy we've managed to get 26 minutes out of 15 seconds when you've just said there about like them showing things in the trailer. I was like, they didn't show anything, and yet here we are, 26 minutes in, or how long actually we are into the show, but we've got a lot out of this.
Intellectuals, that's the thing. That's But Steve and I always joke about, it's like, hey, you give us 10 seconds, that's an hour worth of material. So we'll leave the Emio conversation there for now. If you guys have any thoughts on what we saw, if you have any theories listening at home about what you think's going on, I'd love to hear them, because I'm very interested in this, even if, like Sierra, not a huge horror game guy, but I am very interested by Nintendo dipping their toe here, right? It's something that, as we've discussed, is certainly not something they have a long history of, right? The kind of big M-rated Nintendo releases are few and far between. And even some of the bigger examples were things that were like partnerships, right? Like when they had like Resident Evil 4 as like an exclusive on the GameCube, right? It was like a little out of character. So could certainly be something like that. But I'm kind of more excited about it if it's made by Nintendo. I think it would be really interesting to see them kind of apply that Nintendo magic to something that's not family friendly and not colorful and not, what we know from them,
Well, I look forward to finding out more about that the second this goes live.
I'm sure there'll be a new trailer tomorrow. So make sure.
And I look forward to hearing more about it from you.
we should get we'll get the trailer and we'll edit over it and we'll draw it in like a colorful way. We'll put like stickers on it and things like that. And also, you could probably end up buying the Emio Squishmallow when that eventually comes out.
Oh yeah, hell yeah! Can you, when you draw over the trailer, can you make them all doggies and kittens?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why.
When there's blood, it's just like ketchup coming off a hot dog.
Yeah, it's just magic sparkle.
You do the what was, did they turn all the blood green in Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo? Was that right?
I think so. Yeah. They didn't.
All right. Well, that's not necessary. We don't got to do all that.
Kittens overlay should be more than enough. All right, so we're going to jump into the question block in just a second here and answer some of your questions, dear listeners. But before we do that, let me remind you that this episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of July. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Sobe, Snackago, Steve Stompy, Susan Likes Cats and also Boobies, Ty the Dude, Voodoo Vic, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You're all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Remember, if you want to write into the question block, if you want to go check out our sister shows, the Flip Screen Games podcast and the Steam Deck podcast, if you want to get involved in the community, you can do all that and much more by heading over to flipscreen.games. Go over there, click on some stuff. It helps us out quite a bit, and I can stop talking now so that Sierra and Max can stop stimming. I
was actually because I've heard this so many times. I'm just bopping along.
I'm just bopping to the rhythm of your speaking cadence, my guy.
I much prefer that to when like people check their phones. I'm always like, oh, geez, all right, shit, sorry.
I know that I've got this down in my head. I couldn't do it on command, but I know how you say it, so I'm just like, do.
I appreciate.
If you listen back to, if you watch the start of the episode, I'm doing that to the intro as well. I'm pretty sure. So.
We got to get like I think it's in the Goofy movie. There's this song I'm here. It's like, everybody, there's a song we're singing. Come on, get happy. We got to put like
yeah. Yeah.
All right. So before we jump into the question block, I have a little game I want to play with you guys. We have an icebreaker, which we haven't done in a while. Nintendo Switch is officially the longest lasting console ever from Nintendo. That means we have officially passed the longest period of time between two Nintendo console releases. So I threw this in the document. I asked both of you to not read the article that contains it because I want to see if you can guess what the previous record was. So I'll tell you, just to give you the context, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo Switch launched on March 3rd, 2017, which has now, it's a few days later, but it passed the previous record of 2,686 days between releases of consoles. So I would love to...
This is just home consoles, right?
Any console.
Okay, fine.
Wait, you know what? No, I think it is home consoles. I think it is.
I'm pretty sure the Game Boy's been around for way longer than
two guesses?
I'll give you two guesses because I always win these things, so sure.
Wow. Big talk. All right, go for it. Sierra, what's your two guesses?
SNES is my first guess. If that is wrong,
clarify. When you say that, do you mean from NES to SNES or from SNES to N64?
SNES to N64.
Okay.
And then my second guess is N64 to GameCube. Okay.
Max, what do you got?
I would like to first of all say that this web article, I've not clicked on it, don't worry, I'm just looking at the URL. There's a typo, they spelled Nintendo wrong. They're probably fuming about that. I reckon they're so upset that all their links are going to be busted.
Nintendo.
If they change that now, all their links are busted. So they've got to stick with that. Or anyway, my guess is going to be, just because it had three separate Mario games, Super Mario 2, Super Mario 3, I'm going to say the NES.
So NES to Super Nintendo.
Yes.
Max, that is correct. So the previous time was between the Famicom and the Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, 2,686 days between those two releases. And in retrospect, it's kind of wild because like I read, or I guess I listened to the audiobook of Console Wars again last year for the first time in a while. And man, Nintendo they didn't even want to put out the Super Nintendo when they put it out. Like they had all plans to wait even longer. And it was only because of Sega and the Genesis that they got it out when they did. So it's kind of crazy to think how long the NES's life cycle was in comparison, and that it has the smallest library of games by a few hundred.
Yeah, I purely just the fact there's three Mario games on it that tips me towards that. Sierra, it's okay. You'll get me one day. We've got the big bonanza at the end of the year. You'll get me one day. It's okay.
He loves to throw shade because he, He's always taken L's, so when he gets a W, he's a real sore winner.
I get him where I can.
I don't remember a lot of stuff, but I feel like spiritually I probably beat you in other areas of our tenure being co-host.
I'm sure there's going to be, but I'm not going to think about that. I'll look it up. I once did a team building thing where it was like a training thing when I worked at a supermarket. We went to this sort of big space. It was a bunch of strangers, and they're like, right, we're going to split into groups. You're going to play table tennis against each other, and then at the end, you'll give feedback, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's feedback was, Max is too competitive. And I was like, I'm not competitive. I just won. I'm good at table tennis. I beat you every time. That's not being competitive. That's just being good at table tennis.
I mean, fair enough. I think you can be good and still be a sore winner, but
I'm getting all like the adrenaline's running through me again. Like I'm getting upset about it again. So
I named a trophy after myself, so I'm not, I mean, come on, right? Like,
still the most embarrassing thing in the history of this show. And I've kicked my computer unplugged mid-show before, so that's saying something.
Look, it's named after the Lombardi Trophy. That's what they give to the Super Bowl winner. If you win 2 times in a row, they name the trophy after you. I don't make the rules.
Make things up.
All right, so let's jump into the question block. We have a bunch of questions that y'all have been writing in over the last couple of weeks. There are a couple really good, juicy ones that I've been sitting on for just such an occasion. So I want to jump into this first one. This one comes from Don Devious, who wrote in and said, "Oldie but a goodie. Who is / would be your main in Super Smash Brothers?" Sierra, why don't you start? I think you're the one that plays Smash the most out of all of us.
Oh, wait, is this referring to the original and not?
No, I think it just means if you're playing now.
Yeah, I mean, Isabella's my maid. It always will be. But if I didn't pick up Isabella, I probably would have picked up like Palutena. Or maybe Zelda. One of those.
I forgot those first 2 characters were in Smash Brothers. You saying it just reminded me of it.
Oh yeah. Everybody's here. That is they really meant it.
I saw a King K. Rool amiibo today, and I was like, oh yeah, of course. Like I completely forgot they did that. Too many characters.
Yeah.
I only need 3 Smash amiibo before I have every single one.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a sick person.
I know a guy who worked in the local, the UK's game shop. So he never had to worry about not getting it because it would come in and he'd put it aside and he'd buy it. So he has a dream.
What a dream!
Sealed in a stack.
I'm missing like 3 of the ones that they've yet to reprint too. So I'm like, great. It'll only take 3 more years for me to complete this collection. But I need Wolf, Dark Samus, and then Kazuya from Tekken. He's got Dark Samus next to him.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you do. I believe it. What about you, Max? You got a main?
Yes. So I really started leaning into Samus because I've played Samus since Melee, and there's nothing like getting an unsuspecting player, grabbing him with the grapple beam, throwing them off, and then just spiking them down. No one ever expects it until they do. But I've also always been a big fan of Lucas. I think I love his moveset. I've never played Earthbound or Mother 3, but that is a character that I adore in Smash Brothers. It's just so fun to just like, I've missed. Oh no, I'm just using my attack to send you off the stage with my own body. I like that stuff. I've not played any of the DLC characters, so I don't know if any of them are good or fun, or if I'm going to like them so much. But yeah,
couple of them are great.
Samus or it's Lucas. I really would like to play Sora, but I have not picked up Smash Brothers since. I'm looking at the list here. I haven't played since they released Joker, so that's some time.
And
no,
he was
a lie. Sorry, Joker was the first. Sorry, Banjo-Kazooie. Those are the ones I haven't played.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say I kind of have like tiers, right? Because like if I'm like actually trying to win a game, I would say my main is either Kirby or like one of the Links. I generally prefer Toon Link or Young Link because I kind of like smaller, floatier characters. Particularly like, I really like projectiles and being able to like harass and interrupt combos and stuff like that. Which also probably stems from the fact that I usually don't play one-on-one. I'm usually playing in like a group setting. So I find that like I like being able to affect like larger portions of the map and stuff like that. So I've always kind of gravitated towards those two in every release. But in Ultimate, there's a few characters that are new characters that I ended up getting really into. I really like both of the Castlevania characters, Simon and Richter. Again, right? I love projectiles and like being able to like properly time like their B where they toss that big heavy axe and like knock people, you know, like getting them off level and then harassing them by chucking things at them so that they, you know, can't get back up is like always like a really satisfying way to get a kill. I really like Banjo-Kazooie, particularly like that side B attack that they have that you can kind of use either as like an advanced recovery or like to just chip somebody when they're, you know, at high damage and it's really hard to get around or block if you're not expecting it. I really like that move set as well. And then I like Sora, but I'm not good with Sora. So
me neither. Sora is like too floaty. Way too floaty.
I feel like he doesn't have good closing. Like I like building up the chip. I like being able to like I like the maneuverability, but I feel like closing kills out is so difficult for me. But you know, that's probably just a me problem. But yeah, so the only other character who was a main for me that I ended up that I don't play anymore was Sonic. I used to play Sonic in Brawl, and I really liked him in Brawl, but I feel like the iterations over the last few games have not been super kind to him. And I think he has a similar problem where I like his ability to get around the stage, but like actually like taking out players at high damage is so tough. And he's so easy to take out when he's at high damage that it just doesn't work for me as well as it used to.
I've had way too many interactions with the toxic Sonic mains online. Like, and I'd like to count.
I was a big short guy in Wii U, and that's what made me play Xenoblade Chronicles, and yet just didn't really pick him up in Ultimate. I lost sleep over that short amiibo as well.
Awesome. So thank you for writing in, Don. Appreciate it. I've got a couple more questions from you, Don, but I'm going to hang on to them for themed episodes that I have planned coming up. So thank you for writing in, and we'll get to the rest of them later. All right. This next one comes from Andrew Valentine, who wrote in and said, after the recent Maximus Cup and updates to F-Zero 99, which 99 game do you think is the best?
I've never played them.
None of them?
No.
Really?
None of them.
No.
Neither of you, really?
Yeah,
man, y'all are missing out. I mean, like, do you guys like Tetris or Pac-Man?
I like Tetris, but I don't play it like seriously. I'm like, oh my god, I love Tetris. I gotta play every Tetris game. Like,
it's not something I ever think like, oh, I'm going to play some Tetris. It's like, oh, I'm at my grandparents and like I'm on the toilet and I didn't bring my phone, so my granddad's like 15-year-old little Tetris machine is still somehow going, oh yeah, I'll have a go on Tetris. Yeah, sure. But like,
does your granddad just have a Game Boy in the bathroom for
No, it's just a pure Tetris machine.
Okay.
It's just like a, you know, like a I don't know, you get it from a shop. I don't know. It's just a plastic, says Tetris at the top, and it's all like a black LCD screen.
I love the idea that he just had like a chunky original Game Boy that he's just been
That's where he originally played it.
Yeah,
It's just like
awesome.
at a certain point that just dies, right? So you have to work around it. I'm sure if I gave him Tetris Effect in VR, like that would be like, you know, he died doing what he loved. That would be that, I think.
What's the Tetris game that has like the electronic music?
That's the Tetris Effect. Yeah,
that is Tetris Effect. Okay,
Yeah,
I love that
is
game.
sick. Yeah, really
It is
cool.
very fun. It's just really soothing to play.
I love playing it with headphones and the lights off. Such a
What
vibe.
a vibe. Oh
Such a
god, I wish I had it. Damn it.
So I mean, I'm so floored that you guys haven't tried any of them. I think they're worth your time if you're so inclined. Personally, I think Tetris is the best one. I think that you know set a really, really high standard, and I think I like Pac-Man, but it didn't connect with me as much. I certainly didn't play it nearly as much. Whereas, like, I remember in the early days of podcasting with Steve, we were like, "Oh, like, have you been able to get to first place yet?" Like, that was like a real experience that I really sunk a lot of time into. And F-Zero 99 is really cool, but I haven't spent much time with it. I do like the F-Zero that it's based on quite a bit. That's the only F-Zero I've ever played. So I'd like to spend some more time with it, but just the mood hasn't really struck for me yet.
I just don't. I don't have the Nintendo Online for the stuff that it comes with because it just doesn't really appeal to me that much. I will probably have a look at some of this stuff. Sorry, I need to get the name. That dot guy has given me access to their family plan. Is that what you call it? So I can play Zero Mission on the Switch. So maybe I'll check out F-Zero99. I assume it's got gone soon, or are they all live at once? I don't know how it works.
So Mario 30 is the only one that ever disappeared.
Okay. Well, I thought they were all limited time. So
they
the
may have
Pac-Man 99 still exists as well.
They may have discontinued another one, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, F-Zero and Tetris are both still rocking and rolling. And I don't think there's any end in sight for F-Zero. They didn't like announce it as a limited thing, whereas like that was always the plan for Mario 30.
This is all you're getting from this IP. Enjoy it.
How dare you want another game?
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, we'll end this one with another one from Andrew Valentine, because it's another quick one. Andrew said, which NSO service has the best library? Though my favorite would be N64, and that the older libraries would just be unplayably basic, but the Game Boy collection is surprisingly diverse and engaging. So I know neither of you are big NSO people, but just looking at the library of what's there, do you have a pick for which one you think has the best lineup?
N64.
Go N64.
Yeah.
Why N64? I personally don't think there are that many N64 games that are worth playing. So why N64?
There's enough for me there since it's not a service that I use a lot and not intentionally. I just, backlog stuff. But yeah, it's N64 for me. And then on top of that, like the thing is, like, I really have no reason to say Game Boy or Game Boy Advance. And the reason why is because when I was growing up and those were like the handheld consoles, they were Pokemon machines. So I don't, besides those and Konami Racers, I really don't, like, I can't, Hamtaro, Him Heartbreak, that's like 4 games. I mean, obviously, plus there's Pokemon titles that I'm not including, but
they just aren't an NSO for some reason. Just for
I wonder why.
They hate us and money, I guess.
Yeah. My GBA was a lot of games machine, and while SNES has Super Metroid, so that's like the best game on the entire service. Personally, that's just my opinion. I do think that the GBA having Zero Mission, Fusion, and the Minish Cap is big. Like they are 3 like of my favorite childhood games. We got the Minish Cap when you guys got the DS. So I had like a year where like that was the last Game Boy Advance game, and I like did everything in that game. That is such a special game to me. So that alone sort of bumps that up. And then when you factor in the only place you can play the 2 GBA Metroid games on a Nintendo system now, yeah, great.
Yeah, so I'm trying to like decide which I think is the best, because I think I think the Game Boy library, I'm with you, like has a lot of really good stuff, and I think like excluding like Pokemon, a lot of the games that I would want from Game Boy are there. Like you've got Link's Awakening, you've got like the Mario Land games and stuff like that, but like I don't know, it's like looking at N64, I feel like you have almost every game, with the exception of like Mario Party 3. No, that's there now too, right? Yeah. I'm trying to think of what games are missing from each one, right? And I think that there are key releases that are not Nintendo published games on NES and on Super Nintendo that are missing, right? Like things like Mega Man or Castlevania, or like if you were making a top list of games from those consoles, there are pretty big games that are missing, right? And I think with Game Boy, that's the same thing with Pokemon, right? Like not having any Pokemon game there just like makes that entire library lesser, So I'm almost inclined to say N64 as well, because I think it's like the most representative of the library, where there like are not a lot of really core experiences that are missing. Whereas I think even though some of the other libraries maybe have games that I like more or that maybe like hold up better, which I think maybe the Super Nintendo is a good argument there, because I think a lot of the best games on the Super Nintendo age really well. I kind of feel like I'm inclined to say N64 just because I think it has a diverse and engaging library. I think it's representative of most of the games that you want to see. And I think even some of the games that are questionable, like that maybe they wouldn't have included them, are actually there. Like stuff like Banjo and even like Pokemon Stadium is something I wasn't really thinking they would ever bring over, because there's like
Oh yeah.
a lot of core functionality that's missing, but they like still did it. So it's like, to look at that, I mean, rattling through my like favorite N64 games, I think they're all there, right? So I feel like I kind of have to give it to that one for being the most representative of the library, and also having several games that hold up really well, right? Like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, some of the Mario sports titles, like those games are still worth playing today. Banjo-Kazooie, still worth playing today. And I think that, like, I'm a big defender of the NES library from a modern perspective, but you hit a point after a certain while where the games that are coming out are not as exciting as the ones that were there at initial launch. And the stuff that's missing feels kind of glaring, right? Like not having stuff like Mega Man, it does hurt the kind of authenticity, I guess, of that library. So I've talked myself into N64.
I think the issue with like a lot of these things is that licensing does hold back some of the greats. Like Sierra, you mentioned, I think I mentioned this before on like another show, but Sierra, you mentioned there that like Hamtaro was a game on the GBA that you really remember enjoying. But I assume that a lot of our childhood games are never going to show up because they are, one, personal to us, and two, there's licensing issues. A lot of them are like licensed games. They are movie tie-in games. There are things that we got bought for Christmas because it was like, oh, they saw this movie this year, so we'll get them the game on the Game Boy for Christmas. And a lot of the time, that was even a lesser version of a full game that was on the PS2 or something like that. So a lot of like our experience with these consoles are, so wrapped up in other media that we're just not going to see them again, which I think could skew you either way on those libraries.
Well, and I think it's interesting with like N64 when you think of the historical context that like PlayStation kind of became the place to go because there was no licensing fee and they were like desperate to get games on it. So like a lot of the defining games on the N64 are Nintendo games. They're not some third-party partner that like ended up jumping ship and going to Nintendo, right? Whereas like if you were going to do the same service on the PlayStation, right, like not having Final Fantasy VII, for example, is like unthinkable, right? Like that's like the most memorable game on the console for most people.
Well, we know that the PS1 Mini they did that was sort of a bit of a stunted library, wasn't it? I think people weren't too happy with that full library of games because there
was a couple really key games missing, and it's it's largely because I think of stuff like the Mega Man Legacy Collection, which got brought up earlier, right? And it's like, well, why would we license it to you for people to play for free when we could charge $60 for them to play it, and we get 100% of that, that return. Whereas, back in the day with like the virtual console, right? Like I think that's the reason we don't get the virtual console anymore, is that there's, I think more perceived value in re-releasing your IP on your own than, licensing it out to Nintendo to sell it as like a ROM, right? You can't necessarily cash in on that nostalgia as well. So there you go. For those of you who have questions that we haven't gotten to, and there are many, I'm saving them. We got some themed episodes coming up, and some of them were very appropriate for some of those. So if you have a question we haven't gotten to yet, don't worry. It's in the backlog. I'm holding on to it, and we will get to it when we get to it. So thank you guys for tuning into another episode of Nintendo Noise. This was a fun one. I solving mysteries, prognosticating about scary games, can answer your questions. Always a good time. And remember, if you want to write in with your question for a future episode, if you want to suggest a main topic, you want to just respond to one of the stories we talked about today, what do you think Emio is? Do you think it's a survival horror game? Do you think we're going to get buckets of blood thrown on us? I want to hear from you. You can do all that and much more by heading over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find all the places we are, links to our sister shows, the Flipscreen Games podcast and the Steam Deck podcast, our Discord, our Patreon, however you want to get involved or show your support. You will find links to all that and much more over there. Head on over there, click on some stuff. It helps us out a lot more than it will cost you. So Thank you guys for tuning in for another show. For the crew, I've been Pete. She's been Sierra. He's been Max. We'll see you next week.
Bye.